There comes a moment in the life of every individual on the spiritual path when the words we have read, the truths we have heard, suddenly cease to be mere words. They break open, and from within, a light shines forth, and you are no longer the same. This is not about acquiring new information. It is about a radical shift in consciousness. For centuries, the world has heard the promise, ask, and you shall receive. And for centuries, humanity has misunderstood it, turning it into a plea from a powerless creature to a distant God, a cosmic transaction that so often seems to fail. We have focused all our energy on the asking, and we have been perpetually disappointed by the receiving. But I ask you to consider this. What if the entire power of that statement is not in the mechanics of asking, but in the profound spiritual reorientation that must occur before a true asking can even take place? What if you have never truly asked? What if your entire approach to prayer, to desire, has been from the standpoint of a sense of lack, of separation, and therefore could not possibly touch the substance from which all things are formed? True asking is not the voice of the human personality crying out for things. That is the echo of a dream. True asking is the silent, undeniable recognition of a presence within your own being. It is the inner awareness of a divine activity already in motion. When you come to this point of inner stillness, where you are no longer a beggar at the gate, but a conscious center of God's own life and substance, your very awareness is the asking. And in that same instant, your awareness is the receiving, for you have aligned yourself with the eternal is-ness of all being. You are not bringing something into being. You are beholding the spiritual reality of it now. This is the great transition from seeking God for his gifts to abiding in the conscious union, where the gift is the very presence itself. Your good is not something that will happen to you. It is the very nature of your own soul revealed. To ask from this consciousness is to release the limited concept of what you need and to open yourself to the infinite form the fulfillment must take. You are not receiving a thing. You are experiencing the outer form of an inner spiritual grace. Therefore, let us not waste another moment in the barren practice of petitionary prayer. Let us turn within, not to ask, but to listen. Let us become still and know. Let the clamor of the world fade, and in that sacred silence, let the I that is God become the only ask and the only answer in your life. If this resonance of truth has touched a place of recognition within you, if you feel the call to go deeper into this practice of inner listening, then I invite you to perform a sacred act of spiritual fellowship. Let your journey inward be witnessed and supported by this community. Subscribe to this channel that we may walk this path of revelation together. And in the comments below, do not leave a mere word. Instead, place the number 11 and 11 as a symbol that you are aligning your consciousness with the divine gateway, the moment where the human will surrenders and the divine will is made manifest. For centuries, the human ear has heard this promise, and the human mind, in its inherent state of separation, has immediately constructed an entire theology of lack around it. We have been taught, and we have blindly accepted, that this is a linear transaction between two separate entities. Here you are, a solitary individual, empty-handed and in a state of need, and there, at a great distance, is God, a divine monarch holding all the resources. From this place of perceived emptiness, you form your petition. You craft the words. You attempt to feel the feeling of having it. You try to believe hard enough, all in an effort to bridge that terrifying gap between your lack and his abundance. This is the universal misunderstanding, the great spiritual error that has left millions in a state of quiet disillusionment, wondering why their sincere prayers seem to hit the ceiling and fall back to the ground unanswered. This entire framework is built upon the foundational and utterly false premise of duality. It assumes you are here and God is there. It is the ultimate source of all human suffering. Think of your own life. You pray for peace, yet you pray from a feeling of inner turmoil and anxiety. You are, in effect, holding the turmoil firmly in your consciousness while begging for a peace that feels absent. You are affirming the power of the problem while hoping for a solution to magically override it. This is not asking. This is reinforcing the very state of lack from which you are trying to escape. Or consider the prayer for supply. You sit looking at an empty bank account, feeling the fear of not having enough. And from that palpable sense of poverty, you plead for money. You are acknowledging the supremacy of lack, giving it all your mental energy and emotional substance, and then wondering why the universe does not correct the situation. The universe, or God, can only respond to your state of consciousness, not to the words that contradict it. This externalized form of prayer is nothing more than spiritual begging. It is the self, the human personality, crying out for comfort, for things, for solutions, believing that its fulfillment lies in acquiring something from outside itself. It is the child crying in the night for a parent to come and fix the darkness. But the promise was never given to the child. It was given to the Son of God, to the Christ, to your own true identity. When you pray as the separate I, you are praying from an illusion. And an illusion cannot touch reality. The answer cannot enter a consciousness that is already filled to the brim with the substance of the problem. Your mind is like a cup full of the muddy water of your fears, your wants, your sense of separation. You are asking for pure, clear water to be poured in, but the cup cannot receive it. It can only overflow with what it already contains. The first and most profound step, then, is to stop, to cease the frantic begging, to become utterly still and realize that the entire model is flawed. The transformation begins when you turn from the outer to the inner, not to ask better, but to discover who it is that is asking. You must follow the sense of I back to its source. That I that feels poor, that I that feels fearful, that I that feels alone. Is it real? Or is it a constructed self, a ghost living in a world of effects? When you dare to look within, past the noise of your thoughts and the ache of your desires, You do not find a vacuum. You do not find an empty being waiting for a shipment from God. You find a presence, a fullness, a conscious living, vibrating awareness that is not yours personally, but in which you live and move and have your being. This is the tectonic shift. Prayer is no longer an activity you perform. It is a state of being you acknowledge. You are not a seeker of light. You are a being who is already standing in the very heart of the sun, complaining about the darkness. The moment your awareness shifts from the problem to this indwelling presence, the entire game changes. Your very attention to this presence, this isness, becomes the only prayer that is ever necessary. It is not a prayer of words, but a prayer of being. It is the asking, for in that silent recognition, you are aligning your entire being with the source of all that is. You are no longer a cup full of lack. You have, in that moment of inner turning, emptied the cup. You have made room for grace. And because nature abhors a vacuum, the substance of God, which is the substance of all form, must flood in to fill that space. This is not something God decides to do. It is what God is. It is a law as immutable as gravity. When your consciousness is aligned with presence, fulfillment is not an event in the future. It is the natural, inevitable expression of that consciousness here and now. The form it takes, the needed funds, the healed body, the harmonious relationship, is secondary. It is the outer symbol of an inner, spiritual reality that you have consciously consented to. You are not receiving a thing. You are unfolding into the truth of what you have always been. And so, we arrive at the very heart of the mystery, the great turning point where theology collapses into experience. When the clamor of the external prayer, the begging from the standpoint of a lonely self, finally ceases, a profound silence descends. It is in this sacred quiet, this interior stillness, that a new kind of knowing begins to dawn. This is not an intellectual knowing, not the accumulation of a new spiritual fact, but a palpable, living recognition. It is the sudden, undeniable awareness that what you have been seeking, this peace, this power, this infinite supply, is not a commodity to be shipped from a distant warehouse in the sky. It is not a future event conditional upon your perfect performance. It is, instead, a present and active reality, the very ground of your own being. This, and only this, is the true asking the inner recognition of presence. This recognition is not a passive acknowledgement, like agreeing with a statement in a book. It is an active, transformative engagement with the very substance of life itself. Imagine you have been living in a dimly lit room, straining your eyes to see, complaining about the lack of light, and praying for the sun to rise. You have been focused on the shadows, naming them as problems, and begging for them to be removed. Then, someone points out the lamp in the center of the room, a lamp that has been there all along, merely waiting for you to turn your attention to it and flip the switch. The moment your hand moves to that switch, your entire relationship with the darkness changes. You are no longer its victim. Your action, the movement of your hand, is not a plea for light. It is the activation of the light that is already present. Your recognition of the switch and your decision to use it is the asking. The immediate flood of illumination that follows is the receiving. They are one seamless motion, one continuous activity. The light was never not there, it was only unrecognized. This is the spiritual activity we are speaking of. The presence of God is not a theory. It is the central switch in the room of your consciousness. To become aware of it, to turn your attention from the shadows of your life and rest it upon this indwelling reality, is to flip the switch. This act of inner attention, this conscious abiding in the awareness of I am, is the only true prayer. It is the asking because it is the alignment of your entire being with the source. And in that very same instant, it is the receiving. For you are suddenly flooded with the substance of that source. You are not receiving a package labeled peace. You are experiencing the peace that passes understanding because you have consciously connected to its origin. You are not receiving a check labeled supply. You are becoming aware of the infinite, creative substance from which all forms of supply naturally and effortlessly flow. The recognition is the fulfillment. Consider the experience of a musician who has been struggling with a complex piece of music. She has practiced the notes, the fingerings, the technical aspects, but the performance feels mechanical, empty. She is asking for the music to come alive, but from the standpoint of technique and effort. Then, in a moment of surrender, she stops trying to play the music and instead begins to listen for it. She opens herself to the spirit of the composition, to the feeling it is meant to convey. She recognizes the music not as a sequence of notes, but as a living entity waiting to be expressed. In that moment of inner recognition, her entire relationship to the performance shifts. When her fingers next touch the keys, they are not moving from rote memory, they are moving as instruments of that recognized spirit. The music flows through her. The recognition of the music's inner life was the asking, and the inspired, effortless performance was the receiving. They were not two events, but one. This is why the Master said, "Before they call, I will answer." It is not a statement of magical intervention, but a profound revelation of non-dual reality. The answer, which is the presence itself, exists before the human sense of I formulates its petitionary call. Your true work, then, is to cease making the outer call and to instead practice the inner recognition. When anxiety for the future arises, do not beg for safety. Instead, become still and recognize the eternal now, the very presence in which past and future dissolve. Feel the solidity of that now. Your recognition of this timeless presence is the asking for peace, and the feeling of peace that follows is the receiving. When a sense of loneliness or alienation washes over you, do not plead for companionship. Turn within and recognize the all-embracing love that constitutes your very being. Acknowledge it. Abide in the feeling of its inclusive, unifying nature. That recognition is the asking for connection and the sense of wholeness and unity that inevitably follows is the receiving. The human need is but a shadow pointing toward a spiritual substance. Your task is not to worship the shadow, but to turn and face the substance. The moment you recognize the substance, the shadow loses its power, its reality, and its hold on you. This is the great secret that has been hidden in plain sight. The kingdom of heaven is not a location to which you will go. It is a divine reality that you consciously recognize, accept, and allow to flow forth as your individual experience. And so we come to the ultimate realization, the point where the sacred mechanics of the universe are laid bare, revealing a truth so simple and so profound it shatters the illusion of the seeker forever. When your entire being is gathered into that silent, potent recognition of the indwelling presence, a miraculous fusion occurs. The consciousness that is aware of the presence and the presence of which it is aware are revealed to be one and the same. There is no longer a you asking and a God giving. The separation collapses. In that moment of unified awareness, consciousness itself becomes the asking, and in the very same timeless instant, that same consciousness becomes the receiving. They are not two separate actions, but a single, seamless, divine event. The channel is the flow. The vessel is the content. The asker is the gift. This is the great spiritual law that operates entirely outside the realm of time and sequence. Human thought, bound by the linear, insists on a cause and an effect. First you ask, then later you receive. But in the kingdom of spiritual consciousness, which is the only reality, the cause and the effect are one. The moment a light bulb makes contact with the electrical current, it is both asking for and receiving light. The connection is the fulfillment. The sun does not decide to shine, its very nature is shining. When you align your consciousness with the source, you are not persuading a reluctant benefactor. You are plugging into the nature of reality itself, which is perpetual, infinite giving. Your focused, receptive awareness is the point of contact, and the flow is instantaneous and inevitable. The delay you perceive is never on the part of the source. It is only the time it takes for your own mind to relinquish its doubt and fully accept the union that has already taken place in the invisible realm of spirit. Consider the principle of sight. You do not command your eyes to see and then wait for vision to arrive. The ability to see is inherent in the nature of a healthy, open eye in the presence of light. The moment you turn your gaze toward a landscape and your consciousness registers, I see the tree. The act of seeing and the experience of the tree are one. The consciousness of seeing aids the experience. Now, translate this to a higher faculty. The moment you turn the gaze of your awareness toward the presence of peace, your consciousness becomes the experience of peace. You have not manufactured peace. You have connected with its eternal source, and your conscious connection is the embodiment of it. The asking, the turning of your attention, and the receiving, the feeling of peace, are a single, unified activity. You are not a traveler who has reached a destination called peace. You are a being in whom the quality of peace is now consciously active and expressed. Let this understanding dismantle the anxiety of waiting. Think of a time you struggled to remember a name. You strained and pushed, trying to force it from your memory, and it remained elusive. This is like begging prayer, the effort of the human will. Then, in a moment of release, you stopped trying. You relaxed. You turned your mind to other things, and suddenly, without effort, the name floated into your awareness. What happened? Your conscious mind, in its relaxed, receptive state, made contact with the memory that was already stored within your greater mind. The receptive turning away was the asking, and the emergence of the name was the receiving. They were part of one process. The memory did not travel from a faraway place. It was always there, awaiting the correct quality of consciousness to access it. This is the sublime truth of your relationship with God. The harmony, the wholeness, the abundance you seek are not distant memories, but ever present realities within the fabric of your own Christhood. They are not created, they are recognized and allowed. When you sit in meditation, not to beg, but to become consciously aware of the infinite life that animates you, that very awareness is the infusion of life. You are not later filled with vitality in that moment of conscious union. You are the expression of vitality. The person who gets up from that meditation is not the same person who sat down. The one who sat down was a seeker operating from a sense of lack. The one who rises is a living embodiment, a conscious channel through which the infinite flows into the finite. Your worry about tomorrow, your regret from yesterday, these are the illusions that block this conscious union. But the moment you bring your awareness fully into the now and recognize the I am that you are, you step out of the stream of time and into the ocean of eternity. In that ocean, there is no separation between the desire and its fulfillment, between the prayer and the answer. The wave is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean expressing itself as a wave. Your individual consciousness, when aligned with the divine, is not separate from God. It is God expressing itself as you. And in that expression, every need is met not from without, but from within the limitless depths of your own realized being. The question, what must I do to receive, dissolves into the awe-filled silence of understanding that you must only be the consciousness that is already one with all that it could ever need. This profound realization of oneness, where consciousness itself is both the plea and the fulfillment, demands a complete and final death of the old paradigm. It requires the most radical shift a human being can undergo, the relinquishment of the seeker. For as long as you are seeking God for his gifts, you are affirming by your very action that you are separate from them. You are the hungry child staring at the closed door of the kitchen, hoping for a scrap, rather than the heir who knows the entire pantry is his to steward and enjoy. This is the great transition, the quantum leap from the barren plains of seeking to the fertile ground of abiding. It is the movement from a spirituality of acquisition to a spirituality of conscious union. Abiding is not a passive state of waiting. It is an active, dynamic, and total immersion in the reality of what is. It is to dwell in the I am, to pitch your mental and emotional tent there, and to refuse to be drawn out by the temptations of the world of appearances. When you abide, you are no longer a spiritual consumer, browsing the marketplace of prayers and techniques for the best deal on peace or prosperity. You have come home. You have taken up residence in the source. From this vantage point, your entire relationship with desire is transformed. The human sense of need, which once screamed with such urgency, is now seen for what it always was, a muffled cry for the awareness of God. The form the need took was always illusory. The substance behind it was always divine. You no longer pray for a specific job. You abide in the conscious awareness of the infinite activity of God, knowing that this intelligence will express itself as the perfect form of employment. You no longer beg for a specific relationship to heal. You abide in the living truth of the one divine relationship, of the all-embracing love that constitutes reality, and you allow that love to harmonize all appearances in its own way and its own time. Imagine a tree in the midst of a severe drought. The leaves are wilted, the branches are brittle. The tree could, in a human sense, pray for a specific jug of water to be poured at its base. But the tree does not operate from this level of limited understanding. Instead, it simply does what it is designed to do. It sends its roots deeper into the soil, abiding in its innate connection to the hidden water table. It does not seek a specific container of water. It abides in the source of all water. Its very abiding is an act of trust and knowing, and in time, the life, giving moisture from the deep earth rises to meet its need. The tree's fulfillment comes not from a specific, localized answer to a desperate plea, but from its steadfast abiding in the universal source of its sustenance. Your spiritual life is meant to be exactly this. Stop seeking the jug of water, the specific predetermined solution to your problem. Instead, send the roots of your consciousness deep into the soil of the I am. Abide there. Rest there. Let your entire sense of identity be nourished from that deep, hidden aquifer of spirit. The forms of good that will then appear in your life will be far greater, more appropriate, and more harmonious than any single jug you could have ever imagined to ask for. This shift changes everything about your daily experience. A financial worry arises. The old consciousness would immediately launch into a prayer for money, visualizing checks in the mail, and anxiously watching the bank account. The new consciousness, grounded in abiding, does something entirely different. It pauses. It turns within. It acknowledges the fear, but does not worship it. It then consciously reaffirms its identity, declaring silently, I am not a limited, fearful creature. I am the living expression of infinite, divine supply. I abide in this truth. This is not a denial of the appearance. It is a denial of its power and reality. You are shifting your citizenship from the world of banks and balances to the kingdom of infinite possibility. You are abiding. And from that place of inner stability, right action is spontaneously inspired. An idea for a new opportunity may flash into your mind. A forgotten resource may come to your attention. A conversation may open a new door. These are the jugs of water, but they are supplied from the universal water table, not from your limited mental map of how supply should arrive. The same applies to healing. The old way seeks a specific medical outcome, begging God to manipulate the physical body. The way of abiding turns to the conscious awareness of the one perfect life that formed the body, the harmonious rhythm that governs the universe. You abide in the truth of wholeness, not by denying the symptom, but by affirming a greater reality than the symptom. You rest in the I am that is forever whole. This abiding is a powerful spiritual force. It does not wrestle with the condition, it outshines it, just as turning on a light does not fight the darkness, but simply displaces it by its very nature. To abide is to let the light of your true identity shine, and to trust that every shadow in your experience must eventually flee before it. This is the end of seeking, for you are no longer looking for something you believe you lack. You are consciously inhabiting the fullness of everything you are, and from that place of profound and unshakable peace, you watch as the universe effortlessly rearranges itself to reflect the truth you have chosen to embody. This conscious abiding, this steadfast residence in the truth of your being, inevitably brings to the surface a revelation so fundamental it redefines the very concept of fulfillment. As you rest in the I am, as you allow the noise of seeking to fall away, you begin to perceive that the good you have been chasing in 1,000 different forms throughout your life was never an external object to be acquired. It was not a sum of money, a state of health, or a particular relationship. These were but fleeting shadows cast by a single eternal substance. The profound and startling truth is this: your good is the very nature of your own soul revealed. It is not something that comes to you. It is something that emerges from you as the fragrance emerges from the rose, as light emanates from the flame. You have been conditioned to look for your salvation, your satisfaction, and your identity in the world of effects. You have believed that if you could just arrange the external circumstances correctly, the right job, the right partner, the right amount in your bank account, then you would finally be happy. You would finally be you. This is the great delusion, the cosmic sleight of hand that has kept humanity in a perpetual state of lack. The world of effects is a world of mirrors, reflecting back to you the prevailing state of your own consciousness. To seek your good, there is like a movie character trying to climb out of the screen to change the plot by rearranging the images on the film. It is a futile effort. The source of the movie, the light from the projector, is what must be addressed. Your soul is that projector, and the nature of that light is infinite, intelligent, loving, and abundant good. Consider a simple, powerful example from nature. An acorn does not strive to become an oak tree by collecting branches and leaves from its environment and gluing them on. It does not look at a mature oak and feel a sense of lack, praying for the universe to deliver it a trunk. The acorn simply rests in its own nature. It allows the innate intelligence and life force within it, its very soul, to unfold according to its divine blueprint. The mighty oak is not something the acorn acquires. It is the revelation of what the acorn always was at its core. Your journey is precisely the same. The peace, the wholeness, the abundance you seek are not external accessories to be collected. They are the pre-existent qualities of your own Christ nature, waiting to be revealed through the process of your conscious abiding in the I am. The struggle ends when you stop trying to build a spiritual life from the outside in and instead consent to the unfoldment of your spiritual identity